Welcome, everybody. Like I said, my name is Janki DePalma. I'm with Kirksey Architecture, and this is day one of our salon series. This is brought to you by Women in Architecture, and it is part of our Call to Action series, which is a series that we do for high school students, and then we do one for college students, and then we even do one that focuses on motherhood. And the whole point of our series is really to identify and help remove obstacles that are in the way towards, people who want to become architects from being architects. And this is a series that we did last year, and we had so much fun with it that we're bringing it back. It is our virtual series called 2020 Hindsight, What We Wish We Would Have Known Before Graduating Architecture School. Quite a mouthful, but it's really our love letter to you all. This is all the stuff that we look back and go, no one ever talked about, so now we're talking about it. I'm going to give you some rules of engagement. We're going to be chatting really casual. I'm going to introduce our team. We're going to ask some questions, and then we're going to talk kind of, like couch style. We're going to be talking for the next hour or so. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But because I'm kind of running things at the same time, I'll keep an eye on them, but I might not get to them right away. We will definitely have time at the top of the hour at 7 to officially open it up. And then if you are in the mood, you can even ask your question out there. I will do the first thing before I go, right as I go into thanking our amazing sponsors. For my students who are present, put down in the chat which school you represent. I'd love to see my chat blow up with who's here. So while you all are doing that small homework assignment, I'm going to go to the next slide. These are all the amazing firms that sponsor Women in Architecture in Austin. We couldn't do anything without them. They are all amazing. We thank you all so much. And many of them are represented in our series this week. And then for those of you who have the inclination, either you are here or want to come here on Friday, we are actually having an in-person happy hour, which is part of the registration. It's free, and our friends at McKinney York are hosting it. So if you have time to come, you can meet all the speakers who are going to be here for the next 4 days, as well as just practice your networking skills and make some new friends. So with that, I'm going to minimize my screen here. Boop. I'm going to introduce you to everyone, and then we're just going to have some fun. So like I said, I'm Janki DePalma. I'm with Kirksey Architecture, and I'm their Director of Business Development. And this is really one of my very favorite things to do because it's just gathering some friends and talking to them. And today's discussion is internship hacks and tips to stand out. We know that most of you are in pretty soon you're going to be thinking about, applying for your summer internship. And we wanted to give you some tips and tricks from what both people who've recently done internships, as well as people who are part of the process to either manage or help bring in interns, from a hiring point of view. And we're playing favorites a little bit because we have 3 of our WiA scholarship winners with us who are representing the intern side, as well as a couple of my other friends who are representing different firms. So with that, I'm going to peek over at my notes real quick and make some introductions, and then I will turn off this title screen and we'll just have a good time. So the first person I have is Temi Osanyintolu, who is one of our winners, and she graduated in 2023 with her bachelor's from UT, and she interned and is a designer at Snowhetta. I have Narsis Holmes, who has a bachelor's and now has her master's at UT, who interned and works now at BGK, Barnes, Gromatzky, and Kosarek Architects, that's here in Austin. I have Alexandra Matute Blanco, who is in the midst of her bachelor's in architecture. And then I have my 2 grown-ups who are my close friend, Gabriella, Gabby Bermea. She's at BLK. She has a very impressive resume, but in particular, what I know her best because we're both on the board for AIA Austin, and she is a board member for ACE Mentors, but she's also the 2023 chair for TXA for the EDI committee, and she's also the incoming chair for their practice and recognition group. And then Ellie Bennett from Page Architects is a designer. She not only was involved in recruitment, like on the student side when she was at Ohio State, she's part of the group at Page that is doing college internships as well as high school outreach. All very impressive and busy people. So with this, I'm going to stop sharing. Yay, and I see everybody. Technology is working. Whew. So my panelists, unmute yourself and let's get talking. So I will give you guys a sneak little a little like confession. This is the world of architecture where things are thrown at you that you didn't plan. And so we had planned to try to chat for the like 10 minutes before and kind of like work this all out. It's a Monday, stuff happens, right? And so we can roll with the punches. So I'm going to ask one of my WiA winners. I'm going to ask them their first question. So I'm going to ask Temi this. So this is the question and what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of chat a little after Temi answers. If my other folks wanna like chime in, I really want us to have a fun, casual vibe with this. This is more like a talk show than it is a lecture series. So it's like really, you're among friends. So Temi, I'm really curious from your point of view, before your first internship, like in your head, what did you think it would be? And then what surprised you most when you actually like went and like started doing it?
Right. Hi, everyone. If there's background noise, so sorry, just let me know if it gets annoying. But thank you, Janki, for this opportunity and for the first question. But I think I thought about what an internship would be like before I started my first one. I think it's kind of hard to really know what an architecture and design internship looks like because of how different every firm is. And I felt that the only like real idea of what any sort of internship I had was from like movies or TV shows where it's like the person who gets coffee or has to run and do errands for everyone. And I think we were all pretty sure that that wasn't what our internship was going to be like, but it just left a lot of questions of, okay, so if that's not it, what might it look like? So I think I just kind of went in not really knowing anything. People would always ask, what are you going to be doing? I just say, I don't know. But I think what surprised me the most when I started interning was how much I felt I was part of the teams I was working with. I wasn't expecting to kind of just be another person on each team. I kind of thought I would just be kind of to the side doing extra work that they needed to, help with to finish projects. But I really, unfortunately, felt very taken in by the people I was working with. And I felt like the work I was doing was valued, that I was contributing to something while still learning a lot on the way. So helpful surprise. But yeah, it's normal if you feel that you don't really know what you're going into.
Thank you. That's a very interesting thing about pulling from like what you see in the media, because I think there's so much like what you both like internships, like are you just doing like Starbucks runs, but then also just what an architect does. Like it's pretty much every rom-com has an architect, and it's Narcis, anything different, like, or you want to add to like what because you had a couple of internships too, didn't you?
Yeah, so I did my first internship in high school, which was much different than my first internship in college, which was again different than my internship in grad school. Going into college, I had absolutely no expectations. I really didn't even know what architecture was. So that one was really great in just introducing me to the field. We went on a lot of site visits, and the internship was mostly to get me excited about architecture. Once I was in, and also these were all at different scales. My first internship was with one person. My one in undergrad was with a larger firm of 300. So that one was different in experiencing what it was like to work with such a large team. And then going to the last firm that I interned with, that was a team of 25. At each stage, I was able to feel a sense of ownership, which was really helpful in the internship experience because it just made me be proud to be an intern. And And yeah, I would say I went in with really no expectations in the beginning. And then towards the end, I kind of had like a gist of what I would be doing. But there's always little surprises at each internship.
Interesting. So at both like for the bigger firm, were you like in a squad of interns? Like there's like a whole like crew of them?
So we were actually set up into studios. So I was in one studio and I was the only intern for that studio. But something
Okay.
that was really nice was there was probably 6 or 7 interns and we had group chats on the side. And it was so easy to like text each other and be like, do you understand what this is? Like, I don't understand what
I
that
love
is.
it.
You know? So whereas we didn't have another intern within our studio, there were still other people to talk to.
Oh, that's very, very cool. All right, now I'm gonna pull over to my adults, Ellie and Gabby. Thank you for joining us. My grown-ups. So I'm really
Hello.
curious. I know it's just gotta own it sometimes. So I'm really curious because you both have, we're like various like, different size programs. I'm curious, Gabby, on your point of view, why do you guys have interns? Like, what really is it? Like, why is this a thing?
Yeah. Um, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. The best part of the internship process is getting to have someone fully envelop in the process and be trained and learn. I mean, we very much at BLK are about the apprenticeship model. We think you should have the opportunity to see what practice is because sometimes there's a large diaspora between what education is and what the actual experience can mean. So in the internship, I mean, you're going through all of the same onboarding that our professionals get when you join on board, right? So you're getting the same Revit training as the person who came on board after having 10 years of practice. So we really try to make sure our interns not only feel like professionals throughout, we want you to get the professional practice experience, but you understand and you have again that pride, Narcissus. I love that you said that, the pride that you want to come back and you feel ownership and authorship over your work. Because essentially what we get to do as professionals is mentor and shepherd the next generation. That's what's the most important. That's why we bring on as many interns as we do, whether they are the new graduate. Like right now, we have a high school senior who's interning with us for the next 9 months who we got plugged in through ACE and he emailed me off. So it was like, hey, I need an internship. Can you let us in? And yeah, we're doing the same with some schools out in DFW. So it's that 18 to, upward and onward model. Wherever you are in your educational model, we try to make the space so that you have the chance to learn.
Very cool. Thank you. Ellie, so you guys are a very, very large firm. And I know you're actually really like, you have like your day job of actually working on projects, but then you also really bring in both high school like shadows and like kind of like the outreach program as well as you're bringing in interns, right? So tell me about the model at Page. Like why do you do it? And then do you guys do it throughout the year? Is it mostly just for the summer?
Of course. So most of our collegiate interns are really for the summer, but we do participate in the professional residency program at UT. So we normally have, historically it's been in the fall semester, but more recently it's been the spring semester. We'll have a PRP student. And then we have between 5 and 10 collegiate interns every summer. And then we tried to do 2 to 5 high school outreach programs a year, and it's either during a weekend or during the summer. And that will include like any of our clients' kids, anyone through ACE, through ULI, any of our professional organizations. And we'll even mix and match some of the groups so that the kids can get to know each other as well. But really our practice for having all of these programs at Page is because of our commitment to the profession. We understand that having internships and having like young professional experience is one of the main ways you even get licensed and you figure out if you want to be an architect. And so it's really our commitment to that, which gets us really excited about having interns. It also really reminds us why we are all architects, having young people so excited about it in the office.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. Very impressive. It's giving me ideas to to take back. I want to go back to the internship things. Temi had talked about like what you have in your head of like what an intern does and how it seemed like it was both of you had like very robust experiences. So like, well, what did you do? Like, can you share some of either like the projects you worked on or just like, you know, like how did you spend your days? Like what exactly were you doing? This time I'm going to ask Narsis.
Yeah, I got to work on a variety of projects and some really exciting ones. So my longest internship was at Lake Flato, and I worked there for about 9 months. And the first project I got to work on with them was the Icon House, the 3D printing house.
Oh,
So that was
cool.
an awesome project of getting to go in and Rhino and Revit and build out formwork for something that I never thought I would be working on in my first year. And then I worked on master plans. I did a lot of renders. I did a lot of rendered site plans. Yeah, it was just kind of a variety of things. I worked a lot in Revit too. I did a lot of like details and like enlarged plans, things like that. So there was a nice variety of like drawings that I was working on. And then I also helped a lot with marketing. So being able to understand how to actually get a project, which was really nice because I feel like no one in school talks about how you actually get a project. So being able to be like, there's things we have to do for a client to want us. And yeah, no.
More ideas I will take away because we have interns all the time, but I've never involved them in the pursuit, like ever. So I think I'm going to start doing that when they come in the summer and say, hey, you want to help me with this request for proposal and start answering those questions. That's very impressive. Fun fact, we actually have one of the designers from Icon is going to be talking about architectural pathways, like beyond traditional practice. So she is a friend of mine. So she's going to be talking to our group on Thursday. So what a small world that you worked on that project. So cool. Temi, so I guess you weren't getting coffee and you weren't like ordering lunches, which is what I think every TV show has you imagine an intern doing. And then imagine you weren't getting yelled at, right? So what happened for real?
Yeah, I think pretty similar to Narcis. I kind of had a range of different projects that I worked on during my time. I was a PRP student, so I was doing my internship for 6 months. But I think my first project that I started working on was for a competition that they were starting. So I kind of got to see that process of doing really quick iterations of massing models, trying to figure out how to do diagrams to show the design intention, getting to sit in on design meetings and see the problems that they're trying to work out. Got to do a lot of cool renders and learn tips and tricks from some of my fellow coworkers. But then I also did some projects that were a little past competition, so projects that we had already started working on, but we're still pretty schematic concept phase. So I enjoyed doing a lot of that work, really concept design, a lot of diagramming, a lot of renders. So I didn't have as much construction side experience, but I think I really enjoyed being on the design part of these teams. And then Alex, I don't know if you wanted to add some about your internship experience.
Oh, there you are. You're popping up. Wait, is Alex there? I can't see.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you in the screen. How are you? Welcome. Thank you, Temi.
Thank you.
I apologize. It's
It's
rolling
okay.
with the punches today. Tell me about yours. So what in your head versus let's go back to that first question. So when you were like, got your first internship and then you're going to tell all your friends and family, what did you think you'd be doing? And then like, let's go to the second part. Like, what did you actually do?
Okay. Yeah. So far I've only actually had one internship who I've been going back to for the past 2 summers because he's been great. It's a small firm here in Austin. He mostly focuses on historical preservation, so the buildings are pretty old, so it's a totally different realm. So I honestly had no clue what I was getting into. And when I got to his office, it's only a group of 3 people that really run the office. So
Whoa.
yeah, it's a very small scale, but the way the process of how the projects proceed is that you first have to look at the site and actually study what is going on in the area and like what the building used to be used for. And pretty much we've developed those drawings as to what it was used for. So one of the projects that I did was a cotton gin factory um, in like East Texas. And this couple was trying to renovate it into a metal workshop because they're metal workers. So, but they wanted to preserve pretty much the whole building as it was, but they needed to recover just a few things because it was destroyed. But other than that, I think my expectations when coming in, I really did not have a clue. I was very clueless. I was like, oh, I'll probably just be put to a side and draw a few things. But honestly, just because of the size of the firm, I was very involved with like the design intent, the type of structure that was going into the building, and pretty much was in charge of quite a few of the drawings and also talking with the clients. I think that's something that I learned how to do very quickly just because we were constantly in contact with them. And it was nice. Like I really got to brush up on my communication skills when it came to it. But yeah.
That's impressive. Wow. Wow, it's so interesting because like getting that in depth over something. It's sort of like different scales. Like you can pick up different things when you have like a big squad of other interns and you're like exposed to a bunch of stuff. Or you can go like super deep and I guess know all about a cotton gin factory and stuff like that. Thank you. And I apologize again. The Brady Bunch screen's just totally thrown me off. Temi, I appreciate you making sure that I didn't continue along this path. So for the folks on the firm side, I'm like, so we keep hearing like, I didn't know what to expect. I had no clue, right? Totally understandable. What do you want to see from interns then? Because if everyone's kind of going in with like not really a sense of like, this is what I expect to be doing, what do you look for both like in terms of personality as well as like professional skill set that can kind of like help you make the most of this internship? I see both heads feverishly like nodding, but I'll go with Ellie this time. Like what can help you like make the most of this internship from your point of view?
Right. So I remember at my first internship, they sat us down on the first day. They said, these are our studios. So we have healthcare, we have K through 12, we have workplace. Which one do you want to work in? I was like, I have no idea. I don't even know what half of these are. Never heard of them. We don't learn about these in school. And so I ended up doing like a charcuterie board of studios during that internship. But I've applied kind of what I learned there to our current program where every few days during their first few weeks, they get some of the studio leads in any of those sectors to come in and talk about their work so that the students are able to better understand what kind of work or what kind of problem solving and also what kind of project teams there are in different areas. So a lot of the things we look for in interns is like flexibility, curiosity. We always have a handful of students that know exactly what they want to do. But we love that, but we also love when they're open to figuring things out.
I love that. I just scribbled down charcuterie board of studios because I love that idea. So Gabby, same thing. It's like you manage a lot of as well as like deal with things in like different ways, not just with your firm.
Yeah.
How do you like what's like personality wise too? Like what do you want? Like what should they be doing?
Yeah, I'll echo Ellie's sentiments on curiosity. I cannot tell you how far the interns who ask the most questions tend to go. I've had the fortune of being with VLK for 3 years now. I was with Stantec 4 years previous and had, gone through their internship process. And it's the ones who have how did you do that? Like the humility to be able to ask questions goes a really, really long way in this profession. And I think that goes from the intern, emerging professional, and onward. You have to have this constant curiosity in this field. And I think that's part of what led me into design. So that's my day job, is I do all of the design for most of the educational work that we do here in the Austin office, which has been fantastic. But what am I doing? Asking questions, just like I did at the very beginning of the internship. The other piece that's kind of in tandem with that is the ability to be self-initiating and have self-agency. That, curiosity that is not sparked by someone else, but rather sparked by yourself. You say, I want to know how to do these things. And, make the cold call, ask someone to be your mentor, ask someone to sponsor you if you're looking at moving into certain areas. We have a formalized mentorship process at BLK where we pair a senior and a junior, or sometimes it's a peer mentorship relationship. We try to make sure that our interns have the same experience when they're with their PA, their project architect, or their project designer. They're shadowing throughout their 3-month or 9-month internship. So they feel truly at home and they have someone who will advocate for them. And a lot of times what we see is we can formalize that advocacy, or we can have it informal with the number of interns who just naturally gravitate towards the emerging professional who is 2 years ahead of them, right? And say, okay, well, how can I ask you all of these questions? So I'd really encourage that self-agency and curiosity out of our interns. That seems to just be where people gravitate to, and those are the interns who keep coming back, or we ask back.
Interesting. Okay, so we came up with a list of questions ahead of time, but I hope you don't mind. This sparked some things. I hope my three folks can, or maybe you all can chime in. I'm obsessed with this idea of staying curious because it seems very counterintuitive. Like, you come in as a student and you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, heaven forbid you have like X number of years experience and you have to ask this like quote dumb question, right? I want to hear from anybody. How did you like either do this, like talk yourself into it? How has asking a question actually helped you go, oh gosh, and so, because so while you're thinking of the answer, I'll tell you this. I have this happen all the time where like someone uses an acronym that I assume I'm the only one who doesn't know what that means. And then someone will lean over and go, what is, and I'm like, I guess neither of us knew. Like, I thought it was, and then I have enough agency at my firm, and I'll be like, I don't know what this means. And then they'll unpack it. But like, sometimes my gut is always like, well, I'll just like write this down and do some like Google research on my own. But Gabby's point is really like owning it at the moment and going, what exactly is this? So I want to hear either from Alex, Temi, Narsis, or anyone else. This is not easy to admit when you don't know something. Did that happen? Like, or do you have an example of how that happened in the internship that you would be okay sharing? Alex, unmiked, so you're on.
That's fine. I mean, honestly, it was an everyday thing. I asked the question every single day because I really did not know anything at the beginning. I was like, okay, so how do I do this? How do I do that? Especially when it came to the structural part, as much as we know so much, we don't really like, especially in school, we're so abstract with it that it gets a little bit like, oh man, I don't know what to do like in real life. But I think at that point, like, you just sort of that's what Gabby was saying. Like, it's just literally you just have to ask a question every single day, and if it gets annoying, like you really shouldn't care because they are there to help you do it. So don't.
This is very interesting though, because it's like it's almost like you're taking off the armor of like fronting and acting like you know everything, but you're also putting an armor on, like a Teflon coating, I guess, to mix metaphors, that like you're not going to be worried about what someone thinks about you by asking, like, what does this question reveal about your inadequacies or like lack of knowledge? Temi, did you have this, like, something similar happen?
I think it's of the same, I had the same mindset, I think, of like, you don't want to feel like you don't know anything, or, you want to be able to do what they ask of you. And I think fortunately for me, really early on in my internship, I think everyone who was kind of managing me on their team would always ask me if I knew how to do something. They'd be like, do you know how, they asked me, did I know how to use Rhino? And I said, of course I know how to use Rhino. Or do I know how to use Illustrator? All these things that are just integral to our entire education process. But I think them asking me those questions made me realize they also don't know what capabilities I have, and they weren't assuming them. So I think it was really reassuring to say, okay, if there's something I don't know how to do, they're not thinking badly about me for that. They'll just readjust and have me do something else or explain to me what I need to know in order to do that thing successfully. And I think we overthink it in our heads. We just imagine the worst case scenario, but I've always been so pleasantly surprised how kind and patient all my mentors and all my managers have always been with me. And if for some reason you encounter someone who isn't like that, it's not your fault. That's on them. And there should be avenues for you to be able to either have someone else who will listen to you or, rectify that in some other way. But I think that's just like a reassuring maybe story for you all. Just know that you know what you know, and as long as you're able to express that, you'll always be successful. So
I love that. And I guess it also reminds us that, like, just because you turned in a resume when you were interviewing, like, whoever's dealing with you may not have that memorized and like be like, oh yeah, she knows XXXX. So I want to ask Ellie, like, from your point of view, so like, if you're a new intern and you are worried, like, I'm going to look annoying if I ask a lot of questions, tell me your thoughts on that from like a manager's point of view, or tell me, like, if I'm pretending that I know how to use everything and then I don't, walk me through like the like both those elements.
Yeah, so I actually very often tell some of our collegiate interns, like, if you think it might be a little bit annoying, you should probably do it, because if you have a question to ask, as you said, you're probably not the only one in the room who wants to do it. If you walk out of a meeting with someone, I always encourage them, add them immediately on LinkedIn, message them and ask them if you want to get coffee. If they don't respond to your email right away, follow up. Like, if you think if you have like a second thought, like, that might be annoying, you should probably do it, because life happens, they're busy, go and do it. I think it's definitely hard, and I was like, I'm a young professional, so I was an intern not so long ago, and I definitely remember the feeling of like, I know I am inquisitive and I have all of these questions in my head, but I don't want them to think that I don't know what's going on. And I think it's just walking the fine line of like, how can I make this a good question, or how can this can this lead to another conversation and not just a short answer. So that's what I would encourage people to do, is maybe think about it a little bit more if you are having some difficulty asking the questions.
Interesting. So it's like the idea that, like, maybe within the question inside, there's like a deeper nugget of like information, maybe in terms of like a process or something else that you're exploring. Okay, that's very cool. Gabby, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think that it's easier when you're talking to the person who you're working with day in, day out. I'm not going to the principal and asking a question, hey, how do I do this? And have no idea. I would always use the safety belt of my seat buddy, the person who sits back to back with me, right? Of asking that question and say, hey, how would I do this? Or my favorite question was, how would you do this? And that tended to really, really take it in a different direction, because each PA, each designer has a different mindset. And I use that often today. I got my mentor who sits behind me and my PA on all our projects who sits right behind me. So that same mentality I had as an intern, that is just a humble curiosity, is day in and day out. And I very much relate with Ellie. I mean, I graduated in 18 out of a 5-year B-Arc. So it's still early on, but I've been really fortunate to have been put in rooms where I probably have no business in, but I was asking all those questions that kind of help lead you there. definitely, I can't stress enough, find the advocate who is going to go through this process with you. You have to have an AXP supervisor anyway for your architectural experience program. So I hope all of you ladies are calculating your hours for NCARB so you can move towards licensure, because we need more licensed architects. And that supervisor should essentially assist you in the mentorship or in walking through what exact experiences that you are looking for that fit under the 6 categories of architecture and the 6 categories of your AXP hours. Or you have a supervisor and you have a mentor. The mentor is the less formalized version. So there may not be checking off on your hours, but they are making sure you're getting the opportunities that you're looking for.
Oh, very cool. Yes, that's actually, I'm so glad you brought those specific points up. Narcis, you talked about having like that text thread going on with like, or Slack channel or whatever, like that going on with the other interns. Did you find, like, were people asking each other more of these questions, or did you ever feel like, you know what, I'm not going to ask these guys. It's like the blind leading the blind. Like, I need to talk to somebody else to kind of get these questions answered.
At that time specifically, the group chat was like our first line of defense in a way.
Okay.
That, like, you ask your friends and you're like, hey, someone told me this, and like I actually don't know what that means. And 9 times out of 10, one of the 6 would know. And then if not, I like, at some point you have to understand that, like, as an intern, everyone will make a mistake, and like it's okay to make that mistake, but it's even better if you like ask a question before you make that mistake to show that you're thinking about it. And so a lot of times in the group chat, when we couldn't figure it out, they'd be like, oh, you should talk to this PA, or you should talk to this PM because they're really good at that, or like they kind of like specialize in SketchUp, or they specialize in Revit, so they can be really helpful.
Ooh, that's really interesting too, especially if you're like at a bigger firm where there's like a lot of studios or a lot of resources, and you're like, who should I like get pointed in the right direction? But like, Alex, if you were in a group of 3, were you just like, I got my question, here it is?
I think, yeah, I agree with what Ellie was saying earlier. Like, you really got to think out what the question is and how, like, how to elaborate it. Also, like, as architects, especially still, like, I'm still in grad school, and like, I understand how to like research things online. Like, we do that a lot as architects. Like, we just kind of figure it out. Because sometimes not everybody knows the answer, and I think also, especially, a lot of the people that I work with were a little bit older, so they were not super experienced on the computer. And a lot of your bosses usually are older, so I think it just depends. Like, yes, they will know some things, but sometimes they won't. And like, I'm not saying it's up to you, you got to just figure it out, but there are ways to figure it out. And if that involves like even contacting somebody else, like a friend, or just, like I said, looking it up, it's not too bad. That's what I could say about that.
That's a good point. I like that. I like that a lot. So we've talked about like the intern, like the actual experience. Like, let's say it was like a summer intern or your residency. I'm curious from both like Ellie and Gabby, from what you've seen, what from like a back, like kind of like taking the curtain away from a firm's perspective, what might make you extend an offer? Like, everyone was great. I'm sure everyone was delightful that you worked with, but there's still like a fixed amount of full-time spots you have. Tell me about like some of the like amorphous elements that you've like that can help people stand out, or even determine like, do I want to even work here? Like, I want to hear from your perspective. Gabby, why don't you go? Because your head was shaking so violently that I
Oh yeah,
I
I
knew you had
know.
something to say.
I know, because we our summer
Yeah, we're such
interns
good
usually we bring in 3 or 4, and we have one who really stands out and they get the full-time offer. That's how it's gone historically. And what I've noticed from the one consistently is, one, they're a really great culture fit, meaning there's not there's a humbleness about who they are and how they approach design, how they approach not only design, but how they approach project work. And that's going to be different based on firm. 2 is, were they engaged? Were they engaged throughout their 3 months? You only have so many weeks to really not only cultivate relationships, but to learn. You know, your internship should be on the firm side, it's a teaching model. It is our chance to actually teach you how our process works because not every firm is the same way, right? Were they engaged in the process? Did you want to be here? That's a big question. Like, were you forming relationships with your pod? Were you actively engaged? Did you come out of it learning things? And then on top of that, we go to the project architect and the project principal, those who are over project, and we ask, how was the performance throughout? Were they engaged in meetings? Like if we brought you to a client meeting, were you, I'm going to be frank with y'all, were you listening? Were you on your phone? Okay, that's probably not a good sign. Were you actively taking notes? Were you just in the process with us, having conversations, asking questions? Those things all add up, and I think it kind of goes, and it's a both-sided thing, right? Just throughout your internship, the 12 weeks, you may find out that firm wasn't really a good fit for me. Maybe I should be looking at another thing. So just because they offer you a full-time position, is that somewhere that you want to be long-term? You kind of have to weigh both those options. So I'm very much of the mindset that it has to be a fit on both sides sometimes, and sometimes that's not always the case.
Yes, I actually that was the second question I was going to ask everyone else to chime in. Like, I think that the model has changed a little. Where like when I was like in school, I felt like all I was doing was like desperately selling myself to get hired. Like when I interviewed, I felt like it was a one-way interaction, and it is so different now, where you're really like, do I want to hang out with these people, you know, every day?
Exactly.
I don't know. Like you're kind of like looking at it. But I love the specificity you put, Gabby, in terms of what it means to be engaged. Like even the little things like, you know, because Alex had talked about like your some of the people will be older. I will say the phone is a big one. Like
A big one.
It's a big one because I'm not phone native. And so like sometimes I don't even know where I put my phone. Like my kids will be like, Mom, and it's like the phone is like thrown in my bag, or it's not like my immediate, it's not an appendage. And it's
Right.
an interesting concept of like, how could you accidentally looking at your phone be deemed as not as engaged? Even if you're listening, like you got real, like Ellie, like what
Right.
did you want to chime in about? Like, because you guys are a big firm, but I imagine you don't extend an offer to every single intern, right?
We don't. Of course, we wish we could.
So what are anything to add to what Gabby was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit it right on the head. One thing that we tried to start all of our conversations, like when we do sit down and start to think about taking a collegiate intern on full time, are we able to, as a firm, support their professional development? So do we have the availability of work that they're interested in? Do we have the kind of people in our firm that they could become lifelong friends with? That type of thing. So it really hits on all of the things that you were saying, but it's just putting it all in one big bucket. So if if they aren't able to thrive in their 3 months, like it's a two-way street. It doesn't have everything to do with them as a student, and it doesn't have everything to do with us as a firm. And we might just not be able to support them in their professional development at that time. So.
Yes, I love that idea too about like how do you connect. So I don't want to put anyone on the spot on an internship where you didn't like it, but well, theoretically chat about like, you know, from the point of view of being an intern, what are some of your like red flags or green flags, like the things that you're kind of like, because you come in not knowing what to expect, right? And you're just like, am I just going to be doing this all day? What were some of the things that you guys noticed that maybe you did like you were like, oh, I'm really like, I could see myself here, or or have you heard from other people who were like, this is my intern experience, and maybe you told them like, yeah, that's not normal, like that shouldn't be that. Like, Temi, do you have like some thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say in general, I'm a very personable person. I like to be around people. I'm very social, that sort of thing. So I think what stands out most to me is how people interact outside of work or between work. I was really taken in by at Snow They have a kind of a culture. Everyone gets their lunch and comes eats at the front of the office together. Everyone gathers at the table and they talk. It's almost never about work. It's just about random topics, which is always really fun. People will, walk around the office or go to the kitchen to get a snack between work when they want to take breaks, and they'll always talk to each other. There are like happy hours that we do as a company. Teams do happy hours together. We have like two seasonal parties a year that everyone always looks forward to. Like people are always making an excuse to talk to each other and interact in ways that is beyond just the ways that they need to work together. And I think to me that was really attractive. And as an intern, I was immediately brought into that. And I think I went into it really head on because I was just interested and I liked the people that I was around. So, and you can tell that everyone kind of has this synergy together, that they really, really understand how we all relate to each other. And it makes just a really positive work environment that you can really feel. So I feel like those are things, if that's something that you are like, you're very sociable, I feel like those are maybe sort of things that you want to see in your office too.
This kind of ties back into Gabby's thing about the fit. And I think that's a really good point to bring up. Like that's a great, like cultures are not necessarily like good or bad. Like it worked for you. Like it was a great thing that you were like, yes, I want to like go down to the kitchenette and grab like, a tea and chat with like 3 people along the way. But there could be someone else who's just like I do not want, like I just want to grind this out, and I'm not, it's kind of like it's part of like you figuring out like, could I see myself here all day?
Right. Yeah.
Is this my people? Like
exactly. And there are people who like to, go to work and then they have a ton of things that they do outside of the work that they do on their own. So maybe that's not the right fit for them because you don't want to be the one person at the firm who never goes to any of the events, like is never there to talk to people outside of their work. Like you really want to mix with the culture at that firm, and every firm, like literally every firm is so different. So
that is a good thing to even think about, like in terms of some self-awareness, like where might I like, what's my vibe? Narsis, like what have you experienced, like either yourself or maybe if you've had friends who've done internships where you're like, oh, I don't know about like either good or bad things?
Yeah, I would say I've been fortunate that I've really loved all of the internships I was at. They were all really different, so that kind of helped me to find which one was my best fit, but I think they were all great. I think everyone in school hears the horror stories from their friends of places where it's like there's 5 dudes in a room and we get desk crits every day and yelled at, or we have no snacks, or the different things that you hear from different firms. But I think like what Temi was saying, everything's really dependent on like who you are as a person. I'm a talker, and if I can't work at a place where it's just heads down 24/7, I need to be able to crack a joke and I need someone to laugh at the joke. That's just the type of
Both
person
things,
I am.
like
Yeah, I need those things. I need someone to be able to answer my Revit question about a roof, and then at the same time we can like talk about a concert after. So it's like it was important to find that fit. And some people who maybe are a little bit more talkative have worked at firms where it's very much like a strict culture of like you show up in your suit and tie, you don't talk to anyone, you work, you're like 9 to 6 and then you leave. And like that's kind of how it is. Some people really like that. Some people want to just go to work and get in and out, and then some people don't. But it's different at every firm. Like even firms that are very similar, they'll all have their own niches. And it's just kind of important to find which niche works the best.
that's so true. I mean, sometimes you'll have like different offices of a firm will be different, or even the studios will be like, I know for us, like our interior studio will have a much different vibe than like our community practice, and it all kind of ties in. So we're headed towards the top of the hour. So I wanted to ask like my official final question, and then we'll kind of like ask some questions. I saw a question pop in the chat already. So this is this whole salon series is called 2020 Hindsight, right? Like what I wish I knew. So that's my final question, is either like for like either one of those questions. So either what do you wish you knew, like looking back, like, man, I wish I'd known that, or like the advice you'd give. So either one of those, like if you know, but like it really is the stuff that we don't really talk about enough. So I'm going to start going backwards on the Brady Bunch tree. So I'm going to start with Gabby and then kind of go over. So Gabby, what either hindsight or advice?
Advice that I would give is number one, stay curious, ask that question that you're thinking of, don't hold your tongue on it. And 2020, looking back, I'd probably say be more courageous and be more bold to step in and ask questions. When I was in my first week of my internship, I had the privilege of having a really awesome principal who I now work with again. Like we found our way back, and we're here again together. It's awesome. And in my first week of the internship, he said, "Hey, Gabby, why don't you join me on this interview team and sit and listen to how we pursue a project?" And over the next 2 years, I watched them win that high school, finish it, and go back, and then full circle moment, like last year, he and I interviewed for a high school together, but with me as a professional. I wish I would have had the courage to ask to sit with him in that as an intern, as opposed to, I'm grateful that he said, come in and come be a part of this. But that's something that I would encourage out of everyone here. Have that boldness, walk in that courage, because you're in that room for a reason. You only have so many weeks to make an impression on this team. So do it right and do it well.
That is amazing. I will add to just exactly similarly, like we have like an internship program, but if someone came up to me and was like, hey, could I shadow you for a business development thing? I would just be like, come, let's do it.
Yes. Yeah.
It might not be officially part of the program, but I think the worst they could say is no, we don't have time or whatever. It's like, I don't think
exactly,
like in your head, I don't think they would be like, oh my gosh, how dare you ask? Like, who the hell do you think you like? No one's asked. And that could be
and
your
if
red
they
flag.
do, you need to run.
There's like
Don't
20 job
way.
openings at the AIA right now. So that's your red flag. Ellie, what's your either hindsight or your advice?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. It really has to do with what you were both saying. It's psychologically proven that when someone does you a favor, they're more likely to advocate for you. So if you ever have the opportunity to ask someone to sit in on something, or ask someone to introduce you to someone, or even just introduce yourself, ask them to grab coffee, like that stays with the person, and then you can use all of those connections to get you places later. So it's similar to what we were saying, where you hear these horror stories and there are so many firms with all these different studios and different offices. You can use all of those people that you've met along your journey, and talk to them about what they know. So I would make every connection you can, would be my advice.
That is very, very good. So I will steal some of that. I think your other thing about like linking in, I don't think that's used enough with younger people. I made my son do it. He's a freshman in college. If you're attending here and you see us, the professionals, right after this, you need to link in with everyone here. Because I would, and so my other professionals who don't have their camera on include Alexandra Chavez and Karina, who's our chair. She'd like chimed in in the chat. Definitely like link in with all of us. But I think your point too about that's the Benjamin Franklin thing where it's his thing where he had to like win over somebody, so he asked them to borrow a book, and it was like the fact that they did him a favor it's like you feel very altruistic, and that like makes you like the person more when you're able to help them. So I love that one. All right, we're going down the line. Alex, 2020 hindsight or advice?
I think 2020 hindsight would be like not be like try every single little thing that's going on in the office. Like go to every single different type of program or section in the office and literally just get into it, like during your internship. I know it can be a little scary. I know you just want to stick with architecture, but sometimes you really don't know what you actually want to until you actually try it out. And that's really, really important. And I think I wish I sort of took more advantage of that sometimes with my internship. So
That is interesting because I think that kind of goes back to other points. Like maybe you feel like the proper thing to do is stay in your lane, but it's okay to can you like just kind of lean over a little and see, okay, I like that. That's a good piece of advice. Temi, same question. What are your thoughts?
Just a few small things. I would say going in to have less expectations. You don't need to create this world that you think you're going to be going into because it doesn't exist. You'll find out what reality is once you're in it. And then again, I think people have already said this, but yeah, just explore what you're interested in. I ended up working a lot with the landscape team on a lot of projects. And I just ended up starting to go to their team meetings, and I have an architecture background. I don't have a landscape background at all, but I just really enjoyed the work they were doing. I enjoyed the conversations they were having. So I just asked like, hey, could I sit in on these meetings? And they were more than happy to have me and have me contribute. So I think doing things that may not be in your field right now, but if you're interested in expressing, so people will be more than happy to make that happen for you. And then lastly, be so true to yourself. Like you could have your personality and show people your personality. You can be as friendly to people as you want to be. Like I think the feeling I was able to have with people and the way that people received me was just because I just really liked being around these people, and I expressed so all the time. I was eager because I wanted to be eager. Like you really don't have to pretend about anything. As scary as architecture feels sometimes, and as many issues that we have, it's just surprising how trusting people are, how patient people are, and how welcoming people are. So don't let all these stories kind of freak you out and scare you. Like be yourself and people will accept you for that.
That is wonderful. I think it's such an it's so valuable, but it's often like under represented. Like you have to be your authentic. I shouldn't try to show up as what I hope someone wants to see. It's like I have to be me in whatever that shows, like whatever way that is. Like that's it takes a lot of like self-awareness and maturity to be okay with that and not just like shapeshift into what you think they want us, like what will be hireable, versus then like if they hire you and then like how like it's exhausting being the person that you're not, it's like an app draining your energy and stuff. Narcissus, let's round it out.
Yeah, I guess just a few things. The first thing I'm always big on is be an advocate for yourself. These firms don't know what you want. They just know that you're coming to learn. And if you want to do something, you should tell them. One of the first things I told the last firm I internshiped with was in like 10 years, I want to see myself in leadership. Like, how can we get me there? And that put me in so many meetings that I never would have been in. They were like, do you want to sit in on a meeting with a client? Do you want to do coordination? Do you want to sit in on a proposal? Like being an advocate for yourself is super important because at the end of the day, you know what you want and you know what you need. The next thing is
we have to pause there for a second. That was so good. Okay. Yes. Because like, I can't tell you how many times I've been afraid because you're like, how will this look? Like, who am I? Like, I love that you did this at your internship. It's like I have years in my career and it'll still be like, I don't know. This is like, do I look too pushy? It's like,
no, Narcissus, if you're asking that question and you're saying 10 years, it's happening in 5. I'm just gonna let you know now. That's
amazing.
Awesome.
Like that's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had to like that was so good. It's like, what else would you say?
Well, also to that, I think as like women, we have that fear of like being a little too pushy. Like it's 2023, be as pushy as you need to be. You know where you want to be. You know where you want to be in the future. Like tell people where you want to be, and 9 times out of 10, you'll like get to that place. So I'm always like a big advocate of that. Something else, like another piece of advice, is if you see someone in the office doing something that you think is really interesting or something that you have absolutely no idea about, you should just talk to that person. The amount of times I talked to our Revit guy at my first internship because I was learning about it, and I was like, can you explain to me how to put in this toilet? Can you explain to me how to do this wall? And at the end of the day, I was like, I may be annoying Fred because I talked to him like 5 times a day, but we became great friends because of that. And I got valuable experience in Revit. And then the last thing just for internships is like also have fun. Like at the end of the day, sometimes these internships, you will meet some of your closest friends. I still have a group chat with my old interns. We still talk to each other, and we're now all spread out throughout the country. Some people even left the country, and that's a contact that I'll talk to for probably the rest of my career. So yeah, have fun. Like obviously the main point is to learn, but if you're not happy to go to work every day, that's not fun. So, you know.
It's definitely, those are really great tips. And I think even if there is this like competitive, like you feel a competitive umbrella, like, oh, you know, there's a X number of us are only going to hire one. Like, I think your point is because it's like the industry's so tiny. So it's like everyone will find a spot and then maybe they'll come back to each other. So if you are able to make those connections and, you know, like develop real friendships, that's part of the win too, along with learning and stuff like that, right? You know?
Yeah, it's so important. When I went to UT, sorry, that's my dog in the back.
That's
Don't mind
okay.
her. But when I went to UT for my master's, I think 4 of the interns, we all went together. And if we just hated each other, then that would have made it really awkward because we were in the same studios, we were in the same classes together. And no, we ended up being great friends. We have a group chat, and it's like those things are important. If not, then I would have just known 4 people that I never would have wanted to talk to in classes. But instead, I was able to make lifelong friends.
Yeah, life is too short. So I did see some questions. So I'm going to pop those in, and then if not, I'll ask more questions. But I know I saw some. All right, we have here's a question from Monica. I have a question that might be a bit specific. So this might be more for, and actually, Monica, if you want to, like, I'll read your question, but if you want to expand on it some more, she wrote, I have a question that might be a bit specific. As an international student, what's the best way to navigate applying for an internship? Does being an international student change the firm's decision at all when selecting interns? Ellie, Gabby, either one of you guys have come across this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it definitely doesn't affect the decision in the slightest. If anything, it's advantageous that you have like a unique experience. We had an international intern last summer, and they were one of my favorites. So it'll never be a negative.
Yeah, I'll say definitely from a work standpoint, it is fantastic. I will say if you are looking at staying longer, because I have a number of friends who have gone through the international path and you're wanting to apply for a work visa, you're wanting to apply for a green card, be as transparent about that with your firm as possible, that that's what you want. I'd say you have to advocate even clearer, even quicker to let them know because of the time process that comes along with. And I'm speaking frankly with you because I have a number of friends who either went through a really bad experience with it or a really good experience with it. When it comes to, yes, this is a firm I want to be a part of, know that that is in some ways a marriage until you are waiting on that paperwork, right? So you're there for a while. Really be firm in that decision that that's what you want to do and that's what you want to move forward with. And it's a place that's going to help you grow. But it should not affect from a hiring point, nor do you need to tell the firm that it is a point. That is just something you get to decide on your own, whether or not you want that relationship.
Thank you. It has been sort of like a debate that I have, like, when do I tell them? How do I do this? Like, is it gonna hurt my chances? But it's really comforting to sort of know that it's something that you guys are looking for. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Here's another question. What advice would you give specifically to someone who's an upperclassman and feels behind because she hasn't gone on an internship? I feel you. To a firm, is it looked down upon? So it feels like everyone's getting an internship in 8th grade over at Page, right? what do I do now? Like, how do I, like, am I behind before I even started? Like,
I think I can answer that one.
sure.
For my undergrad, I also did architecture, and to be honest, I did not do a single internship. I just kind of went with school, and then when I got into grad school, that's when I started interning. So if like right now, if you are where you're not planning on going to grad school, yes, like you should maybe look for something. But also, I really wouldn't worry about it. I also knew a lot of people, even in grad school, that did not intern at all, and they still got a job after graduating. So I, you're okay. It's gonna be okay. You will always, there's always a slot for somebody. Like there's always a job here, a job there, and yeah.
Very cool. That is true. I will say, I'll chime in too. The experience is valuable, but like I know for us, like we don't necessarily, like if someone's done a couple internships, it's not like they have 2 years experience. Like if they've done 2 summer internships, it's not like, oh, now they're coming in as that. Like they pretty much, it's just a little bit extra. It's nice. It helps us know, like, you know, might know how to function in the space, but I don't think it's a must have. I would argue though, that networking is very important. So Gabby put her thing down. You should connect, like
Yes.
open up your other browser and like connect. Because I will say that's probably more important because even in this hiring market, a warm like resume intro to, especially if it's a firm you like, will get you seen versus like cold applying to the job board. So if you then go like, oh yeah, like that gal who moderated, she works at Kirksey, I want to work there. Like that, like we don't have to be best friends. Like just a connection could do it. Same thing with Ellie, Gabby, all of us. Like, you know, like if you're looking at Snowhead, talk to, you know, like you aren't in charge of hiring, but you are a person who can then be like, let me just at least talk to you. I could put your resume in front of like the hiring manager or the HR person. So I would argue that is probably like, if you're feeling behind, I would start like work in your net, like create your network. Gabby, what do you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, 110%. No internship doesn't mean you don't have to network. Get into these kind of events. Go to the happy hour if you can on the 10th. The other part in getting to connect with people who are at the places you want to be, at the firms you want to be, is you can pick their brain on all the good and all the bad, right? So you may not, have spent 12 weeks in an internship there, but you can get their experience as a professional and say, hey, is this really somewhere I want to be a part of? What does your day-to-day look like? What does a successful person look like in your firm? And what is someone who maybe falls in the middle or lower range of your firm, right? Get the full picture. The network component is going to be so, so important though. Ask people, I love asking people out to coffee and just saying like, hey, let's go for coffee and just be, frank with each other and talk about what it is that you do or what you want to do. It's a great way to connect.
I'll also do it like a side plug for WiA. We have like so many subcommittees. So this is one of them, but there's one that is the Profiles series. So it's on our website. It's like these really cool videos. I think we all did one for the scholarship winners. Watch those. Gabby's one of them. Those Karina, those Alexandra. Watch those and connect with those because I think like they're exposed, like they're sharing their stories, but then you could then be like, I want to know who you are. Like I kind of know you a little bit. I think you're not asking them on like a date. So just saying like, can I have coffee with you? It's not like a 4-hour, it's just like all of us can do a half-hour coffee. Like
Exactly.
I will guarantee you that no professional will say no. If they didn't reply, it's because they got busy or did like I do and I mentally replied. And then I realized I did not, I just did it in my head. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I should. And then I flagged it and then all this other stuff happened. But just like Ellie said too, it's like ask.
Right.
Got another, yeah, chime in,
I would
Ellie.
just say like, and if they don't respond, like, don't be discouraged to like respond again, ask again. Like life happens, you got busy, as you were saying, like just respond again, ask again.
Okay, so I got a really good question here from Sanjana. And
Could I
it's,
just add one more
oh
thing?
yeah, pop in.
Sorry. Just really quick, the easiest people to connect with are also your alums from your school. When I was searching for places to apply to, before getting hired by Snowhead, our career services advisor just told me, these are some alums that work at these places that you're interested in, reach out to them. And you just ask, hey, I'm really interested in applying to your firm. I'm interested in learning about how the company culture is, the work you kind of do. Could we arrange a talk to talk about that? And it's also the age of Zoom, so it's even easier. You don't even have to go to coffee either. You can have a little quick hour or 30-minute video chat, and it's the same thing. So
that's the perfect little script to even put in like a LinkedIn thing.
yeah,
So it
I
doesn't
just
feel
feel nice.
creepy. Like, don't send them your portfolio or anything like
Yeah.
right away. Just be like, here's the thing. Let me go to Sanjana's question, because this one I think I'd love to have Ellie, Gabby, and actually all of you guys chime in on this. So competition is going to be high, even with all the firms that are opening up internships. Competition might be stiff with like certain firms. How do you set yourself up to be a strong applicant, right? So whenever the pool opens, should you be doing some pre-work ahead of time? Should you what are your thoughts? How would you know, especially if you've been thinking about the type of firm? Like, Alex, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, well, what helped me a lot was like the resources that the school gave, especially like the career services resources that UT has. I know.
Can you go into your mic a little? It's kind of, for me, it's going in and out a little.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're perfect now.
Okay, yeah. So it was mostly like the resources that the school gave. So I used a lot like the UT resources. I know a lot of you don't go to UT, that's okay, but I have no doubt that the school has some sort of resource there that you can either ask for them to check your portfolio, check your resume, even have like a in-person practice, what's it called? Like interview practice. I think that can be super helpful, and that has always helped me, and it has gotten me where I've gotten now. So
Yes, I think that's a great point. Like, these are resources that are like the school is providing, and they'll have like a greater sort of cross section of all the firms in the area. I think that's a wonderful idea. Alexandra chimed in. Come prepared with questions. Always send thank you notes, and I will 100% say that. Like, no one gets mail anymore. So if you actually send a note, that is like, I would say like the second you're done, if you know you're having an in-person interview, you have like the envelope already like written out and stamped. And the second you're done, you like run to a coffee shop and write like 4 sentences. Dear blah, great meeting you, 2 points about why you rock, and then like thank you, whatever, and then send that like as an actual hard, like a note, I think would be perfect. Ellie, Gabby, Temi, anybody else, like how do you stand out? Like, is there any pre-work that you would recommend people do before the official window opens?
Yeah, I'd argue it's not too far different from business development, where your first touch point should never be the interview. You should be pre-planning well ahead of time. If that's what you want to do, if that's where you want to go, like, let's say your interview is on, 2 weeks from now. Okay, well, 2 weeks prior, I'm going to be connecting on LinkedIn with the person who's hiring me, with someone who is an emerging professional who's, maybe right above where I want to be. I'm looking at the website. I'm looking at their content and asking, is this something I want to do? I'm calling the hiring manager and say, hey, can I schedule a phone call with you before our interview so I can know what it is that I'm walking into? Can I have an agenda prior to the meeting, what I can expect to see in this time? The soft touch points go a really long way, because now your hiring manager or the architect who's going to sit in on the review with you is saying, they've already reached out to me. I think I've got a really good feeling about them. They seem really interested in this role. Let's give them an even higher shot.
Yes,
The
I think
sociability goes so far.
it
So far.
definitely does. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember when you were applying for undergrad, there's this whole concept of like, it's like proving interest. Like, sometimes the school will keep track of like, are you following us on social? Are you, did you go to the walking tour? And it's like added to your Common App. It's not like the deciding factor, but if someone shows like they've actually been like paying attention and involved, that and I would definitely, like, if I wanted to get a job at the like one of your firms, I would start becoming like internet friends with like everybody I could who worked there. Ellie, what about you? You particularly do, like, you're also part of the recruiting group, right? Like, are you on campus and doing the road
Right.
shows and stuff?
Yes, exactly.
So what would you recommend?
Yeah, really similar to what Gabby was saying. Like, I would connect. You're already doing all of the right things by coming to these kinds of events. And now you can use everyone you've met here as an advocate. So, but one thing I would say is like, connecting with people and asking questions, it can be scary. So even if you just find one person that like you're in a professional organization with, or you see you both graduated from the same school, or you follow the same thing on LinkedIn, you can use that as a connection point, and you can say, can you tell me more about your workplace studio, or can you introduce me to an emerging professional and that I could get connected with? Like, you don't have to do it all on your own. People are very willing to help you, especially once they know that you're interested in working for the firm.
Yes. Any other thoughts, like Temi or Narcis? Like, if you got like that random email or LinkedIn message, like, what do you want to see? What, like, how do you want someone to approach you?
I think always showing your passion is always a good thing, and being really specific about why you're interested in a specific firm and a specific role, and really making that clear, because when people know that this is something you enjoy and this is something that you'd really put your best towards, that's always a good sign. I think even some of my peers have written cover letters. Always make a specific cover letter for someplace that you really want to apply to, nothing boilerplate. But that's like a compliment that they'll get right off the bat, is your cover letter was so clear and so like captivating. It really conveyed like a want to work there. And I think that is an easy way to set people apart as well.
Yes, I think I was doing a career outreach the other day, and the students just wanted any internship. It was for a business school, but and I was like, well, what are you interested? They're like, anything. And I was like, can you come? Like, I need you to like decide what you want, and then I could help find it. Like, I might, like, if you say, I want to work at this firm, I can help you find that connection. But if you're like, I'll take anything, you're just like, oh, I don't know, even, it just feels too amorphous. It's like you're not making it easier on yourself to get an internship. It's like having that work is really good. Narciss, like, you put your thing in the chat, so now everyone's going to link in with you. So how are you going to help them?
I think, just reaching out to someone at that firm that you may know, or just in general, someone you see on LinkedIn. Last week, we had a student from ACC email us, and they were like, can we shadow you for the day? And we were like, that sounds awesome. Like, come into the office next week. We'll like put you in, like you could shadow like 3 different people, and you can see if this is something you really want to do. And that person, we don't know them at all, but we appreciated the fact that they looked through the LinkedIn and decided that they were just going to send an email to whoever email they could get a hold of. And I think something like that's really important. And then also the networking is so important. I'm gonna say like half of getting the job is like who you know. If you like know someone who can vouch for you and they're like, that person, like I know that person will work really well. That's like one of the best things you could possibly have. I would say like that's like up there with your resume. If someone's like, I know for a fact that person could like deliver, that's I think like one of the best things you could possibly have to get a job.
Yes. And I would also, 2 things, like the thing you said, like one, coming up with creative options, because a lot of times people aren't thinking. So if you're just like, hey, can I do this? They're like, okay, like we never thought about having a shadow program. So you're like the first one to create that. But this part about the network, you're bringing up this interesting thing about like the concept of what's called a weak tie. So like you have like, there's like a sociologist talked about like strong ties are like let's say like your family, your family friends, this like the tight group of people, you all kind of know the same people, like your circle's sort of the same, but it's like your weak ties, the people who are like 2 degrees of separation from you, they'll, especially for stuff like work, will often like advocate for you, because it's just like, well, I kind of know them. Like, would I stake my reputation on them? No, but like, I'm going to kind of make assumptions that they're kind of, they're basically qualified, and they've taken like a proactive step. So sometimes I think people think like, well, I have to be like very best friends with someone before I can ask them if I could work at their firm. And like, Ellie, like you seem like you have like comments on that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the best things you can do is make a weak tie and say like I'm very interested in your firm, or even I'm very interested in your story. Can you tell me more about how you got to the place that you're at? It's similar to what I was saying before, like it's asking for a favor, it's asking for something, and I will always be more likely to vouch.
Yes, and I think that story is an interesting one because it's also like you're asking him a favor, but it's a very like self-aggrandizing, like talk about you, you know. And I think that that's very good. Well, we're almost out of time. Did anyone else have like a quick question? I'd love to have room. Amira, bravely asking a question, not in the chat. Like,
my keyboard's being a little annoying. That's the reason. But I didn't want to interrupt anyone. First of all, thank you for having this. I really appreciate everyone giving their little tips and tricks and advice, if you will. But my question is, my undergrad's actually not in architecture. It was in mechanical engineering. And so I'm doing my master's now in architecture. So I definitely kind of relate with like feeling like I'm behind the curve and trying to catch up. So what advice, I guess, would you have in this position that I'm currently in?
ooh, okay. So well, we have like some other similar things. I mean, I don't see anything. I don't know. I can't help but think you're like a little bit of a unicorn. Because like half the time, like I look at like MEP stuff and I'm like, ooh. So I like the fact that you have this undergrad, I think kind of adds a depth, but I'll let some of my professionals chime in. Ellie, you work at a firm that actually does all those things. So
Yeah, I would say that you already sound like you'd be an incredible intern. You know, you
yeah,
already know.
she's already stealing you.
Yeah,
I have no chance. Like
I mean, that's the best it can get. You like that's really all you need to say. And then I think you can, go into a firm that if you want to study something that's more like architectural engineering, or you're interested in firms that have in-house engineering, like the hiring teams will be even more interested in you because of your dual experience. So I think that's very advantageous.
Yeah, lean into it. And Amira, if you're looking for other contacts who have gone through similar pathways, let us know. Like I'm part of the Young Architects Forum with AIA National. I'm on the advisory board there. And we have a number of professionals who actually have this very, very similar story. May not be practicing in Texas, but they found their path as well. So let me know. I'd be more than happy. I'll probably send Seth's LinkedIn in here so y'all can connect. But again, it's only going to make you a stronger professional. Just incredible. Wonderful.
I would definitely appreciate that, because every time I've told people at school, they're like, "Oh, what? Why'd you do that? You're crazy." And so if I could have some people that have already gone through it and kind of get their tips of like what's the easiest transition to make, I would really appreciate that.
oh my, no, I just see this as like a value add. Like I mean, it's not like so I have a degree in literature. So it's not like, and I love that. I do a lot of writing, but I could see that where someone's like, huh, where did that fit in? But it feels like you're coming in with like another language that's part of the design continuum. Like you're already like, yeah, like all of us, all of our architecture people are like, you want an internship? Like, because being able to talk that talk is, and you need to find other people to hang out with, like who aren't like making you feel weird about your undergrad. Any other comments for Amira?
So I personally was not in that situation, but I had many friends who had backgrounds in like industrial design, literature, psychology, sociology, like all different types of backgrounds. And the most important thing is just to put yourself out there. They were really upfront about the fact that they're like, I don't have a background in architecture, but the fact that you're even going to grad school to do architecture and you're putting in the time and effort to be like, I'm going to spend more time in school than my peers, that in itself is like a major boost. You're like, I'm willing to put myself through 3 additional years to be able to be an architect. That like shows a lot of firms that like, you're going to be willing to work and you'll be excited to work because this is something that you really want. So I wouldn't let that like deter you from not applying to any jobs.
Definitely. I mean, it shows a lot of self-awareness, and like everything you learn, it's still valuable. You know, like I got people dinging on me with my literature degree, and then I'm the one who's like writing all their correspondences and like writing articles and stuff like that. So I wanted to bring up a couple really key points in the chat before I close this out. So in addition to all the LinkedIn things, which you better like link in like right after here. Alex brought in a really good question to think about for an interview. What's the biggest challenge for your company faces, and how can I be a part of that solution? I think that's a really good one. It's very, very creative, and it's like very like you're kind of looking at this as the firm as a business too. I think that's something to always remember. I'm going to officially close this out. I hope I see many of you guys tomorrow. And then if you're available on Friday for our happy hour, thank you all for just being a part of this. This is really our very favorite thing to do. If you have other ideas on like topics that you're like, next time you should talk about this, like let me know, because we're always like trying to come up with the idea for next year. And then link in with all of us tomorrow, same time, same channel. We're having our talk, which is what surprised me most those first 2 years. And so it's a way back. It's definitely a 2020 hindsight discussion about like what those first 2 years out of school were like. So I want to thank you all and my amazing speakers. Oh, this is like the best part of doing this, is like I get to moderate and just like chat with my friends. So thank you all, Temi, Gabby, Narsis, Ellie, Alex. Thank you. And then Miss Karina, who is our like chair, like beacon, and Alexandra, you both really keep our WiA chapter going. So I hope to see you guys more. Also you can be part of WiA here, right? So
yeah,
thank you
so
much. Keep the conversation
Janki.
going. Of course. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Hopefully. If not,
Yep.
see you soon. Bye, guys.